Namaste, Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki. We are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 7, Text 29. Rudra Uvacha Tabhavarada Varangrav Asishe Har Kilharte Yapi Muni Bir Ashaktar Adharan Harhanye Yadi Rachita Diyamha Vidya Loko Pavadam Japati Ganhaye Tat Tvat Parhanu Granhena. Lord Shiva said, "My dear Lord, my mind and consciousness are always fixed on your lotus feet, which, as the source of all benediction and fulfillment of all desires, are worshipped by all liberated sages, because your lotus feet are worthy of worship. With my mind fixed on your lotus feet, I am no longer disturbed by persons who blaspheme me, claiming that my activities are not purified. I do not mind their accusations, and I excuse them out of compassion, just as you exhibit compassion toward all living entities." Purport. Lord Shiva expresses herein his regret at having been angry and having disturbed the sacrificial activities of Dakṣa. King Dakṣa had insulted him in many ways, and thus he had become angry and frustrated the entire sacrificial ceremony. Later, when he was pleased, the yajna performances were reinstituted, and therefore he regretted his activities. Now he says that because his mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, he is no longer disturbed by the ordinary critics of his way of life. From this statement by Lord Shiva, it is understood that as long as one is on the material platform, one is affected by the three modes of material nature. As one is in Krishna consciousness, however, one is no longer affected by such material activities. One should therefore always be fixed in Krishna consciousness, busy in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. It is guaranteed that such a devotee will never be affected by the actions and reactions of the three modes of material nature. This fact is also corroborated in Bhagavad Gita. Anyone who is fixed in the transcendental service of the Lord has surpassed all the material qualities and is situated in the status of Brahman realization, in which one is not afflicted by hankering for material objects. The transcendental relationship with the Lord. This program has to be followed strictly by everyone. From the statement of Lord Shiva, it is understood that he was always in Krishna consciousness, and thus he remained free from material affliction. The only remedy, therefore, is to continue Krishna consciousness rigidly in order to get out of the contamination of the material modes. Text 30. Brighur uvacha yanmayaya gahanaya paratma bodha brahmadayas tanubratas tamasvis spanta natmantritam tava vidantya dunapi tattvam soyam prasidhatu bhavan pranatatma bandhu. Sri Brigu said, "My dear Lord, all living entities, beginning from the highest, namely Lord Brahma, down to the ordinary ant, are under the influence of the insurmountable spell of illusory energy, and thus they are ignorant of their constitutional position. Everyone believes in the concept of the body, and all are thus submerged in the darkness of illusion. They are actually unable to understand how you live in every living entity as the Supersoul, nor can they understand your absolute position. But you are the eternal friend and protector of all surrendered souls. Therefore, please be kind toward us and forgive all our offenses." Purport. Bhrigu Muni was conscious of the scandalous behavior exhibited by each and every one of them, including Brahma and Lord Shiva, in the sacrificial ceremony of Dakṣa. By mentioning Brahma, the chief of all living entities, within by mentioning Brahma, the chief of all living entities within this material world, he wanted to state that everyone, including also Brahma and Lord Shiva, is under the concept of the body and under the spell of material energy, all but Vishnu. That is the version of Bhrigu. As long as one is under the concept of the body as self, it is very difficult to understand the Supersoul or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Conscious that he was not greater than Brahma, Bhrigu included himself in the list of offenders. Ignorant personalities or conditioned souls have no choice but to accept their precarious condition under the material nature. The only remedy is to surrender to Vishnu and always pray to be excused. One should depend only on the causeless mercy of the Lord for deliverance, and not even slightly on one's own strength. That is the perfect position of Krishna-conscious persons. The Lord is everyone's friend, but he is especially friendly to the surrendered soul. The simple process, therefore, is that a conditioned soul should remain surrendered to the Lord, and the Lord will give him all protection to keep him out of the clutches of material contamination. Text 31. Brahmo vacha naitatsvarupam bhavato supadharta vedagrahai purusho yavad ichat jnanasya chartasya gunasya chashrayo maya vyatikrito matastvam. Lord Brahma said, "My dear Lord, your personality and eternal form cannot be understood by any person who is trying to know you through the different processes of acquiring knowledge. Your position is always transcendental to the material creation, whereas the empiric attempt to understand you is material, as are its objectives and instruments." Purport. It is said that the transcendental name, qualities, activities, paraphernalia, etc. the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be understood with our material senses. The attempt of the empiric philosophers to understand the absolute truth by speculation is always futile because their process of understanding, their objective, and their instruments by which they try to understand the absolute truth are all material. The Lord is aprakrita, beyond the creation of the material world. This fact is also accepted by the great impersonalist Shankaracharya. Narayana paro vyaktad andham avyakta sambhavam. Avyakta, or the original material cause, is beyond this material manifestation and is the cause of the material world. Because Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is beyond the material world, one cannot speculate upon him by any material method. One has to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead simply by the transcendental method of Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 18.55. Bhaktyamam abhijanati. Only by devotional service can one understand the transcendental form of the Lord. The difference between the impersonalists and the personalists is that the impersonalists, limited by their speculative processes, cannot even approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas the devotees please the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his transcendental, loving service. Sevan mukhe hi. Due to the service attitude of the devotee, the Lord is revealed to him. The Supreme Lord cannot be understood by materialistic persons, even though he is present before the Gita, even though he is present before them. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna therefore condemns such materialists as mudhas. Mudha means rascal. It is said in the Gita, only rascals think of Lord Krishna as an ordinary person. They do not know what Lord Krishna's position is or what his transcendental potencies are. Unaware of his transcendental potencies, the impersonalists deride the person of Lord Krishna, whereas the devotees, by dint of their service attitude, can understand him as the personality of Godhead. In the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna also confirmed that it is very difficult to understand the personality of the Lord. Text 32. Indra uvacha idam apichutya vishvabhavanam vapur ananda karam manodrisham sura vidvicha panar udayudhar ujadhandar upapanam astabi. King Indra said, "My dear Lord, your transcendental form with 8 hands and weapons in each of them appears for the welfare of the entire universe, and it is very pleasing to the mind and eyes. In such a form, your lordship is always prepared to punish the demons who are envious of your devotees." Purport. It is generally understood from revealed scriptures that Lord Vishnu appeared with 4 hands. But in this particular sacrificial arena, Lord Vishnu appeared with 8 hands. King Indra said, "Even though we are accustomed to your 4-handed Vishnu form, this appearance with 8 hands is as real as the 4-handed form." As Lord Brahma had said, to realize the transcendental form of the Lord is beyond the power of our senses. In reply to that statement by Brahma, King Indra said that even though the transcendental form of the Lord is not perceivable by the material senses, his activities and his transcendental form can be understood. The Lord's uncommon features, uncommon activities, and uncommon beauty can be perceived even by an ordinary man. For example, when Lord Krishna appeared just like a 6-year-old or 7-year-old boy in Vrindavan, he was approached by the residents there. There were torrents of rain, and the Lord saved the residents of Vrindavan by lifting Govardhan Hill and resting it on the little finger of his left hand for 7 days. This uncommon feature of the Lord should convince even materialistic persons who want to speculate on the limit of their This should even convince materialistic persons who want to speculate to the limit of their material senses. The activities of the Lord are so pleasing to experimental vision also, but impersonalists will not believe in his identity because they study the personality of the Lord by comparing their personality to his. Because men in this material world cannot lift a hill, they do not believe the Lord can lift one. But they accept the statements of Srimad Bhagavatam to be allegorical, and they try to interpret them in their own way. But factually, the Lord lifted the hill in the presence of all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, as corroborated by great acharyas and authors like Vyasadeva and Narada. Everything about the Lord, his activities, pastimes, and uncommon features, should be accepted as is, and in this way, even in our present condition, we can understand the Lord. In the instance herein, King Indra confirmed your presence with 8 hands is as good as your presence with 4 hands. There is no doubt about it. Text 33. Patnya ubhacha, patnya uchu, yagyoyam tava yagyaya kinashristo, vidvasta pasu patinadya Dakṣa kopat. Tamnastvam savasayana bashanta medham Yagyatmanalinaruchadrisha punihi. The wives of the performers of the sacrifice said, "My dear Lord, this sacrifice was arranged under the instruction of Brahma, but unfortunately Lord Shiva, being angry at Dakṣa, devastated the entire scene, and because of his anger the animals meant for the sacrifice are lying dead. Therefore the preparations of the yajna have been lost. Now by the glance of your lotus eyes the sanctity of the sacrificial arena may be again invoked." Purport. Animals were offered in sacrifice in order to give them renewed life. That was the purpose of having animals there. Offering an animal in sacrifice and giving him renewed life was the evidence of the strength of chanting mantras. Unfortunately, when Dakṣa's sacrifice was devastated by Lord Shiva, some of the animals were killed. One was killed just to replace the head of Dakṣa. Their bodies were lying about, and the sacrificial arena was turned into a crematorium. Thus the real purpose of yajna was lost. Lord Vishnu, being the ultimate objective of such sacrificial ceremonies, was requested by the wives of the priests to glance over the yajna arena with his causeless mercy, so that the routine work of the yajna might be continued. The purport here is that animals should not be unnecessarily killed. They were used to prove the strength of the mantras and were and have been rejuvenated by the use of the mantras. They should not have been killed as they were by Lord Shiva to replace the head of Dakṣa with an animal's head. It was pleasing to see an animal sacrificed and rejuvenated, and that pleasing atmosphere has been lost. The wives of the priests requested that the animals be brought back to life by the glance of Lord Vishnu to make a pleasing yajna. And thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 34 on Wednesday. Jai and Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Nishangapali Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath
Jai.
Baladev Subhadra Ju Ki Jai.
Jai.
Mai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai.
Jai.
Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Giri
Jai.
Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai.
Jai.
Shakun Radhakun Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi
Jai.
Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jai
Jai.
Harinam Sankirtan Yajna Ki Jai.
Jai.
Scientific Sankirtan Yajna Ki Jai. Princeton
Jai.
Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai. Sri
Jai.
Chaitanya Saraswat Institute Ki Jai.
Jai.
Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai.
Jai.
Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari
Hari
Hari.
Hari Bol.
Jai Srimati Uma Devi Dasi Ki Jai.
जय गुरुदेव। श्रीपाद कृष्ण केशव प्रभु जी की जय। दंडवत प्रणाम प्रभु जी।
धन्यवाद दीदी।
दंडवत।
हरि बोल।